Hi, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about reading reversals in tarot. This is one of those that sometimes if you ever see tarot readers in a group or something, they can get into a debate whether you should use them or not, whether it changes the meaning too drastically, it's unreadable, or no, you should be doing it, it expands the deck. So it's really, remember my other video, there are no rules in tarot. It's a personal choice if you want to read reversals or not. I personally like to read them, but I don't read them in all my decks. Some decks I have just kind of learned over time just don't do well reading reversals. They're not necessarily made for it, and I'll talk about those a little bit. But reading reversals, I do because it does tend to expand the deck. For example, we talked a little bit about the death card yesterday, but say you want to know something about an ending. Like say you're reading a relationship and you want to know if it's almost over or if it's just dead in the water. The death card, when upright, can say, no, this relationship is pretty much done. But if you've got it in a reverse position, it can say, no, it's not quite done yet. It's on its last legs, but perhaps it can be salvaged. So that is a case where a reversal can kind of expand the meaning of the layout. And then it can, give you a little bit different meaning than if it was only upright. But I want you to understand this too. And this is really important for people who are like, you know what, that's just too much for me. I don't think I want to do reversals. Spirit is going to choose the appropriate cards to give you the message, whether you reverse your deck or not. They really are. For me, if I reverse my deck, it makes it a little bit easier for me to understand because I'm just kind of used to it by now. But for you, you may have a harder time understanding it. If it's going to make it more difficult for you, then don't do it. If you don't feel that that is you and that's your way of reading. But Spirit is going to choose the right appropriate card for the situation. I just drew this, Two of Cups reversed. I just happened to pull what's at the top of the deck, right? And this is a good one to kind of explain things. Two of Cups, everybody knows, is a soulmate card. And it's not always, necessarily lovers or relationships. Obviously, though, it is, a younger man and woman. But sometimes it could be siblings, too. It could be siblings, it could be, best friends, your BFF, could be the Two of Cups relationship. So if it's in a reverse position, it could be there's a little trouble in paradise. It could be that they're parting ways. There could be a separation. So that's one of the reasons I kind of like reversals, because it can tell me something that's going on, especially if I'm seeing that, especially if somebody is going to come to me for a reading, is he my soulmate, or we're kind of on the edge. Are we going to part ways? Are we going to make it? Two of Cups may give an indication what's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean they will part. Now you have to really be, intuitive to know that. Look at your surrounding cards and so forth. But you can definitely see that there must be something on the edge here in the relationship if you've got a reversal. So in something like that, you could see, yeah, that would be beneficial to read a reversal. Let's try another one. The Sun reversed. Now the Sun, obviously, many know it as innocence and happiness, is a very good card. But another reason it could reverse is it could be telling time. So for instance, now we're getting into fall, the sun starts setting, right? Maybe it's okay, we're going into winter because the sun is in the reverse position. So you could be doing a reading and you're trying to connect with a timeline. When will I move? And then you draw the sun reverse, say it's in your outcome position. So you're like, I feel it's going to be either fall or winter, is when it's going to happen, because the sun is kind of pointing when it starts, not showing as much throughout the day, and we are dealing with more night. So that is another reason for it. Let's try another one. Another good one is Six of Swords, and that is the moving card, especially to leave a difficult situation behind. So I see this very often with an actual physical move. So I'll be doing my reading, Six of Swords. Are you planning on moving? Yes, I am. Oh, that's great. Well, Six of Swords is showing up right, so it does support a physical move, for you that will be coming up. Everything looks really good. But if it's in a reverse position, and then Spirit may be saying that now is not the time to necessarily make that physical move. Maybe there are certain things that need to fall into place before we completely uproot. Or maybe the person is like, I was thinking about moving to Florida, and I pull the Six of Swords in the reverse position. And I'm like, what? Spirit's not necessarily supporting a move there. Is there anywhere else you were thinking of going? And maybe you could split the layout, which is okay, I'm going to read Florida, and then I'm going to read, North Dakota, let's just say. And they're choosing between two options. And then you can kind of see what kind of supports, work your way through. And so you can see that reversals can be beneficial if you read them in that. Let's try one more. And this is a very good one. And this is one that I've been kind of looking at because I actually wanted to talk to you about it. But see the Ten of Swords reverse? We could say it looks like the swords are actually coming out of his back. Or maybe they're not necessarily going in, and we can avoid the backstabbing moment. But it is normally a very dramatic end. In Thoth, obviously, it's the Ruin card. But we can see in the reverse position, something very dramatic may have been averted, with the reversal. But of course, when upright, now normal depictions show the swords actually in, but this one, they're just kind of hovering over. Maybe Cyril Marchetti just wanted to be a little gentler in the imagery. But, that, hey, it's survivable, but 10 is, everything comes full circle with the 10, in tarot. So it's normally pretty good to be stabbed in the back. I can see it in murder, even if I'm reading something like a missing person case, if there's been a really, terrible murder or something, Ten of Swords may show. But you could see the reversal. Maybe we're going to avoid that dramatic ending. Maybe we can, get out of a situation before it gets so bad that you got the Ten of Swords in your back. So I want you to kind of think on that. Here are some decks that I don't read reversals, and some of you may own these decks, and I'm going to go ahead and explain why. Now, I'm going to talk about this deck, and I better not get any messages. Why do you still have that deck? No elitists message me about this deck, but I do have Doreen Virtue's Angel deck. I still have it, and, as far as I'm concerned, it's my deck. So I don't really care that she made it and she renounced and she ran to Christianity. I've tried to talk to her personally on her page and I got banned. So at least I can wear that badge of honor that, hey, I was banned from Doreen Virtue's page. But just to give an example, looking at it, you notice there is writing on the cards. So it's a tarot deck. It is a regular tarot deck. It sticks to the meaning of tarot. It's pretty solid on that. It does change some things. Obviously, death is release, for example. It softens, certain things. Judgment is renewal. So she did go gentler, or at least she probably just slapped her name on it, let's face it. And then other people made the deck because she obviously didn't do the art. But, they soften it a little bit. But there's writing on it like an oracle deck. So when you've kind of got that stamp of writing on a card, what are you going to do? You can reverse it if you want to, but then you've got all this writing you got to reverse in your head too. So because of the writing on the deck, and it is a softer, gentler tarot deck. Its personality is very soft. Obviously, death. The death card could still be, a real hardcore death type of message. If you're reading it, that it could, but it tends to go softer. It tends to really go easy and kind of walk on eggshells around you when it gives the message. Now, Thoth is different. Okay. This is the deck that I say it does not care if it hurts your feelings. Crowley, that's the way he was. He's very brutal. And this is one I don't read reversals on. The reason why is this. This is the Book of Thoth. And I do recommend, I don't expect you to understand anything he says, but it's still good to read the excerpts of the cards. What makes it a little different than the Rider-Waite is he included Egyptian magic in the deck. So he's got his own differences. And, he was the beast, okay? So if you get the Devil card when you're reading Thoth, it's actually a positive. Where in other decks, the devil, that's a very negative thing. He chains the lovers and he's, he could be a very toxic influence. But in here, it's a very positive and a powerful card. So especially about personal power, you could say is one of the things. He's even got a card, lust, and he thought lust was a good thing. He's a completely different. That's why he's the beast. But if you want to go ahead and read, the Thoth deck, I recommend that Book of Thoth. But if you notice, it doesn't include reversals. I look at somebody like Crowley and all the books he wrote. Obviously, many people know he wrote Book of Allah, Magic Without Tears. He started Thelema. And he wrote everything down. Let's face it, he wrote everything down. So if he wanted his deck interpreted with reversals, he'd have probably put it in there. He'd have probably put it in there and made it simple. But they all have, their astrological correspondences. Certain deities are involved in that, especially the Eon is a very good example, which is represented with the goddess Nut. Well, how do you reverse the Eon? It's kind of a resurrection type of card, resurrection from death, is especially what, the symbol. It's like an ultimate symbol in his deck. And how do you reverse that? So that is why my personal preference is not to reverse it. It's up to you if you want to do it. And if you have real smooth reads by reversing it, that's totally fine. No rules in tarot. But I personally recommend, I would say before you even start reading it, get the book, kind of read it, get kind of a feel for what he's trying to express with his deck. And then you'll kind of understand. Let's draw a card from that and just kind of see and explain. Let me get a better one. Prince of Deaths. Okay, so like the Eight of Pentacles, and that's prudence. And most of the traditions, this is a very positive card. It looks very fruitful and so forth. But you see this a lot with employment and so forth. So, but just very prosperous and mastery. But with prudence, it's very Virgo. So, how do you reverse, that element, that kind of Virgo element from prudence? And you could say, if I was reading an employment read with Thoth, you could say I could be out of work and this and that. But then Virgo is still such a master at what they do. And how do you reverse prudence? So it's going to get really tricky for you to be able to do it. So, but another thing too, I also, because when I started working with it, I was reading reversals in the beginning, but something didn't sit well with me. And I'm looking at the book and it's like, but it doesn't even reverse, in the book. But I went online a little bit to see what some of the students were saying, because there are students at Crowley, and they weren't using them. They pretty much, the majority of them that are real diehard fans and are studying the path, or even, studying Thelema, and they're practicing that, they don't really use them. So, and even the Golden Dawn didn't much either. The old ceremonial magicians, Israel Regardie, they just, I don't even think Dion Fortune did. So they're not very big on reversals themselves. How it evolved, I'm not sure, but it's pretty standard that many read reversals now, and I would say people of the Golden Dawn kind of just accept it as so. Now, I'll also go to the Osho Zen deck. If anybody has it, and it's a little bit different. It's definitely got a different flavor. It's got Osho's personality, just like one has, I would say I've stripped Doreen Virtue's personality out of this deck, but definitely, Crowley is involved in Thoth. I can totally feel his presence, but this one is Osho. And let's just give an example. See the stress card, is just about to, pop the bubble and everything, and he's going to fall apart. So, I reverse it and it's not stressed, but this is also the Seven of Wands. And if you are familiar with tarot and the Seven of Wands, it's a rather kind of aggressive kind of card. And you could even say there's some anger and temper in there. Somebody is really going on the offensive in the Seven of Wands deck, in card. So, it's kind of hard to reverse the stress. You could say, okay, he's relaxing and he's becoming less stressed and so forth. You could, but you've still got this image, you've still got this image, and it almost looks like he'd be falling apart once this happens too. So, and there's just some other spiritual, let me see if I can find another one to explain. How about the Hermit, the aloneness card? So if I reverse it, so he isn't surrounded by a bunch of people, right? He's still alone. He's still very much alone in this image. You know, it's just like, but in the traditional Rider-Waite, you could say, okay, the Hermit needs to come out of the cave now. When there was a reversal, he needs to come out of seclusion and so forth. But I look at this isn't called the Hermit. This is aloneness. And aloneness is very positive to Osho. You know, he's definitely supportive of that meditation and getting away from people, that there are times you need to do that you need to detach. Detachment is a very big thing with Osho. So that's kind of my feel. It just reads better, especially some of the more spiritual meanings like beyond illusion. Well, if I reverse the beyond illusion card, you know, does it mean I'm deluded? You know, so just it's simpler if you keep that one, you know, just regular upright and just read it as is, you know, is my feel. But the rest of them, just like I was pulling Six of Swords, you know, working with the regular deck, you know, whether it's Rider-Waite or even there's many Cyril Marchetti ones. But it's good to go ahead and get a book. I like 78 Degrees of Wisdom. That's a good one. And go ahead and just kind of practice reading reversals along with it. I mean, of course, learn them upright first, but then kind of get a feel, you know, read the descriptions and kind of, oh, okay, I can see what that means. Let's try another one. So Three of Pentacles, you can see it in self-employment. A lot of times there is three people actually talking in tarot, but there'll be like a handshake deal is what I see with Three of Pentacles. But in his depictions, he usually has one person holding up Three Pentacles. But I can see this for promotions. I can see this for partnerships, for self-employment, some kind of handshake deal. I can even see it court cases, you know, that they come to an agreement and settle before they go all the way to trial. That there is some kind of agreement reached, and obviously there's some finances. Now, one of the interesting things that this also comes up for me when there's usually people kind of, you know, coming together with an agreement in the Three of Pentacles, I can see it for even in relationships, more of a situation where a relationship may be a friends with benefits. Maybe I'm not going to do the love and commitment. Notice there's no cups here. So I'm just going to have some kind of a partnership, less the commitment. We make an agreement. Things are going to go this way. I can also see it even in a marriage when it's become almost a business partnership, less really a love relationship in the marriage. An actual marriage, maybe it's just about paying the bills and taking care of finances. Maybe they do work together in a business, you know, in some way, but the love is kind of disappearing and they really need a date night. And so you could say a reverse position is, you know, maybe we're going to end the agreement. Maybe we can't, in a court case, come to terms with something and we do need to go to trial. Hence why I have a reversal. Maybe the two in the friends with benefits relationship part ways. Or maybe I was going for that promotion to higher, you know, upper management and I didn't get the job. So you can see that is kind of a reversal that I can kind of fly off the top of my head. It's always going to depend on what you're reading, of course, and as well as the surrounding cards. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to wrap up soon. Now, Ten of Cups is a very interesting card. One of the things to understand about it, it is a beautiful family card. I mean, it looks like they've got it all. They've got a beautiful rainbow, the cups. It's very complete looking. But another thing, it's a very appearances card. So it really depends on your surrounding cards, just how happy this family is. If you see a whole lot of turmoil, but you see this card sitting somewhere, like especially at the crown of a Celtic cross, it could be this is the appearance they put up for the world, but everything is falling apart on the inside of the home. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it is a happy family and everything is great. But doesn't it look almost a little too perfect? You know, it makes you kind of wonder, you know, it's just almost a little too perfect. But then you take a reversal of the Ten of Cups, and that's when maybe the appearances start really breaking down. and we really start seeing what's really going on in the house. You know, the illusion of happiness is all falling apart. I've been trying to keep up with the Joneses all this time. I had the nice house, I had the nice car, I had a good job, and maybe they're starting to lose all that. All that's kind of unraveling. And maybe they were, though it's not necessarily as materialistic as the Ten of Pentacles is, because that can be happy, you know, financial boon, and you've got the wealth and everything is achieved. But one of the things about it is this is a very much an emotional connection that one could have to having all these things, the joy and the love and the perfect relationship. So it's a very idealistic card. It can be. I'm not saying the happiness can't be achieved. There are those that achieve it. But especially with the Ten of Cups in a reverse position, it can be a breaking down of that whole dream, you know, where it slips through your fingers and you kind of realize the lesson of impermanence. So, but yes, as far as, you know, what you decide to do, you may find that certain decks, the reversals flow very nicely if you want to do them. You know, get the books and read the reversal definitions. They may fit for you. And another good thing too, I really recommend using a journal. I actually have one here. I should give my friend a plug. I read this one, Your Personal Tarot Journal. This is the one by C.C. Sullivan. And just because I've been reading 20 years doesn't mean I'm not going to stop journaling, because there are still things to learn. I pull a couple cards a day and then I see how they play out in my world. So I'm always learning. You should always be journaling. So definitely check out that. But read the reversals, read some of the books, and kind of get an idea and a feel. But if you come to the conclusion, this is not for me, I don't want the complication of reading reversals, you do not have to do that. Don't make anyone feel you have to do anything in tarot. It needs to be your way and what you're most comfortable with. And I hope this helped.